here it goes. The early access reviews for Sims 4 Adventure Awaits expansion pack are in. And after watching literally hours of content, here's what you need to know about the top bugs, limitations, and reason not to buy this new pack. But there are also a whole list of reasons about why you might want to buy this pack. Now, I admit the reasons not buy Sims 4 Adventure Awaits seem longer, but I want to make sure I cover everything I saw so you have a fair warning. Of course, this isn't a substitute for actually watching these full access videos. Of course, I will leave the link to the videos below. Now, this expansion pack I think has a ton of strengths, but honestly, it is good to be aware that there are limitations, and there were a fair few bugs that were picked up in early access. That in mind, let's get the worst parts of the pack out of the way, including both bugs and just some limitations. The first thing is, there have been some issues with completing a task for the Critter Hunter aspiration. As you know, this new pack comes with 2 aspirations. I know there was also one issue Lilsimsie in particular was having when researching, but she was actually able to get around that. Now, I will say, one of the things I was most interested in for this new pack is archery. And while archery is a great addition to Adventure Awaits, unfortunately, it's not without problems. The main problem is there are actually archery contests. Archery contests is a really interesting concept. Unfortunately, in some archery competitions, people have had it completely canceled out, or basically there just is no winner. Now, this next thing is more just an aside and something to be aware of. Some of these pre-made venues don't actually have schedules. They're supposed to have schedules, but when you place them, just be aware and make sure they actually have a schedule. Of course, I would recommend customizing them anyway, but it again is something to keep in mind. Now, moving on, we need to talk about festivals. As you know, this new pack comes with a couple new festivals. Honestly speaking, I feel like we already have too many festivals in Sims 4. However, in addition to giving you even more intrusive notifications, sometimes the festivals don't work as planned. For example, some people had no jellyfish at the Glow and Flow. There's a Fitness Fest day where Sims are supposed to show up in costume and no one did. And in addition, there are some people reporting that some festivals nothing really happened and Sims were just standing around. Now, that could be another issue with simulation lag or general autonomy, which we will get into in just a bit. Unlike festivals, I actually was looking forward to the modular playgrounds. And trust me, there are lots of pros with these playgrounds. I think they look fantastic and customizable, but unfortunately there could be an issue with them. The main issue is Sims can get stuck. In particular, say your Sim has a burglar that is robbing your house. That burglar can actually get stuck in the playset and there's really not much you can do about it. And now, though, we need to go into some more potentially interesting issues, and this is less a bug and just more by design. This has to do with the new careers. Now, the new career in this pack is a park ranger or the counselor. These careers work as rabbit holes and you select different options that impact their performance. Now, the problem is your Sim is gone for a full weekend at a time. With the schedule of your Sim being gone a full weekend at a time, it is incredibly difficult to progress in this career. And don't get me wrong, I think Sims 4 needs more challenge, but it sounds like it's especially challenging and maybe not in the most intuitive way. Your Sim will take care of some basic needs, but in general, while they're at work, their needs are going to continue to go down. And if you consider that, for a full weekend, that is a problem. Now, you probably will run into more issues with the career if you are actually playing just one Sim. That's because things can arise in your household and you can't manage them while you're at the career. So in short, I don't think these careers are totally terrible or anything like that. This is just something that is a design choice and maybe you will find it just fine. And along those same lines, something you might find annoying but not really too big of a deal is hide and seek. So hide and seek is really cute, but unfortunately you're mostly going to be initiating it. That is, most of the time, if you want to play hide and seek, you have to do it. For another issue is, if you do have to initiate hide and seek, just know you are always the seeker. So again, this is just a design choice. It would have been nice to be able to select your own roles. Now we are going to move on to some more substantial issues, so brace for impact. It's not too big of a surprise that the most substantial issue in this pack is the cooking challenges. So cooking challenges are pretty much a hot mess. This is not too surprising because basically what happens is food keeps piling up. The problem is during a cooking challenge you cannot manually drag food away, and because of this it just becomes a hot mess. Even if you have someone assigned to supposedly help out, it still becomes a problem very quickly. In addition, if your Sims are in a cooking challenge, they pretty much just cook and sleep and it gets out of control very quickly. In short, even though the cooking challenge did interest me, this is the one I personally would avoid. And in addition, I will say it is becoming increasingly cluttered in terms of user interface. Honestly, I can't fault Adventure Awaits too much for an increased user interface because it is just the nature of this pack, but it is something to keep in mind. For example, there are formative moments. Now, formative moments are an interesting feature, but you can have up to 5 formative moments active at any given time. This can happen through suggestion, even your imaginary friend, and also through trying different skills and activities. These formative moments I do think are interesting in concept, but just keep in mind you can have a really cluttered Simology panel if it gets out of hand. And in addition, of course, we have more festivals, and more festivals, of course, also mean more pop-ups. And even adding even more to that, there's also the venue schedule menus. So you get new menus for the venues and the getaways, you have the new formative moments, and of course you have a few new sentiments as well. That isn't to say these are bad additions, just keep in mind it is going to clutter up your user interface all that much more. And kind of going along the same lines, some simmers are finding this pack overwhelming. Now this is interesting that many simmers said it was overwhelming because some of these simmers have been playing The Sims for many years. They said it's very overwhelming at first to set everything up properly. You have to select Sims for certain roles, you have to assign outfits, make schedules, etc. Now I say you have to do that, but really you don't. In fact, you can just pick resets and you can pick and choose what you actually want to add to the venue. For custom venues in particular, there really aren't very many qualifications. So in short, yes, it is a little bit overwhelming at first, but I don't really see this as a con. There is, however, an argument that in Adventure Awaits, while we do get new systems, technically speaking, you can do a lot of these things without this pack. The things you cannot do without this pack, of course, are all the new gameplay items and the new skills, which I think are pretty great. The getaway system and custom venues do give lots more multifunction. On the other hand, something like challenges you definitely could do without this pack. Some simmers, including English simmers, said it felt like they were micromanaging things and they would be just as well to do challenges without these systems. Now, there are though limitations and routing issues too. To limitations, unfortunately, you cannot combine custom venues with different lot types. You do also always have to pay or be paid. So if you are attending a getaway, you do have to pay for that getaway. If you're hosting the getaway, you actually have to be paid. It would be nice if you could take off that monetary system. Also, please note, you cannot set schedules for different days. The only aspect you can do is have an activity shuffle. Otherwise, you're going to have the same day repeat over and over. And finally, unfortunately, with Adventure Awaits, you can also expect dips in performance. Many of these simmers who have great computers noticed increased lag, Sims clustering together, hosts just not showing up at all, and basically the game slowing down. In addition, for custom venues, Sims are supposed to prioritize their main roles. However, they tend to instead get fixated on a certain activity. There have been reports of Sims swimming for hours or kayaking for hours and doing absolutely nothing else. This doesn't really surprise me whatsoever, and I would actually say the third Sims game has this problem too. So all in all, I would say the cons of Adventure Awaits are important to consider. There are a number of limitations, the challenges seem messy, and autonomy and lag are big concerns. However, that said, it is time to move on to the pros of this pack because despite all these limitations and concerning issues, I will say Adventure Awaits has some pretty good content. First of all, the main reason to buy this pack is for its expansive systems. I cannot stress enough how much creativity you could have with this pack. You can use the systems for faux boarding schools, senior living centers, bed and breakfasts, and even honeymoons. It's great for earning money, and honestly, it can be pretty open-ended. Just looking at these reviews, I could imagine so many different things people could do with this system. There also is tons of pack integration. Now, I don't know all the pack integration, definitely not, but we did see on the live stream there are tons of activities to choose from. I would say this is good for legacy gameplay, but also challenges like Rags to Riches, and honestly, lots of different storytelling too. I would say this is a weird pack that it could actually appeal to tons of people, even if you like realistic gameplay or occult gameplay, or like me, some of both. It makes lots more interesting, and you get more use out of your world. You can use the getaway system even in vacation worlds like Granite Falls, and you can host an event at the same time as a getaway. For example, someone hosted a funeral and a getaway at the same time. Now, honestly, this is great for storytelling, but I do worry about this a little bit, so I would just say proceed with caution. There are also some pros to the world. Now, all the limitations of the world are pretty typical for Sims 4. There is a lot of set dressing, and yes, there are fake houses and anything you would expect, but despite the set dressing, there is still decent amount to explore. For example, there's tons of places to swim and fish. This is an open feeling world compared to many of them and reminds me a little bit of Sulani that way. There are lots of places to explore on beaches. There's even an island you can swim out to. And of course, there's a little bit of lore, and even if I'm not that excited about the quest system, at least there are additional things to do in the world. There are places to show up for different festivals, again a pro and a con, and apparently you can experience all 4 seasons in this new world, but the water stays fairly temperate. So all in all, there's lots of places to explore, and if you do like fishing or boating, kayaking, or being on a beach, this is probably one of the better worlds for that. I will admit, I don't feel like traits or aspirations in Sims 4 are always the best. However, the new trait is getting a ton of praise. With the competitive trait, you can become a spoil sport and throw tantrums, or you can work towards being a better sportsman. This doesn't sound like much, but it does impact your interactions and have an impact on the sim growing up. In addition, the new aspiration, Cool Kid on the Block, is not necessarily revolutionary. It does encourage them to do social interactions, really explore the world, and collect items. It isn't again the most exciting, but honestly we don't have that much in terms of childhood aspirations, and this is just a great addition. The biggest part I would say is most exciting about this pack is gameplay activities and skills. For gameplay activities and skills, you have archery, kayaking, diving, collecting butterflies and moths with a beautiful display case. With the new fitness equipment, you get new animations, and of course you can use it to have classes. Meanwhile, little additions like hide and seek and rock paper scissors just give kids more to do. But by far the most impressive new activity is papercraft. Papercraft is a level 10 skill, and you can create cards, hootie catcher for fortunes, animals, and all this can be used for both decorations and gifting and selling. It's just a great activity that kids and adults alike can partake in. Now, there are also tons of rewards and bonus traits. You get rewards and bonus traits from getaways and challenges, and even from formative moments. I think those systems together are a way to round out your sim more. Other small details include a water woohoo with some pretty good animations, pre-made getaways like the summer camp especially. There is some decent creatism for children, even though it's not exciting. There's a decent amount of athletic wear, which I feel like we don't get that often. It does seem like it's an expansive pack, and what I mean by that is it really can expand your game. It can expand your other content. My biggest concern with this new pack, honestly, are the performance issues. I would be concerned about those performance issues and take them seriously. All in all, this pack has tons of potential, but I am a little bit worried about it. So let me know what you think about all this in the comments below. Do you think you will buy Adventure Waits or wait it out? As always, take care, and I'll see you in the next video.